Hi, I'm Frank Masiosi, and I'm here today with Jordan Glatt, and we are interviewing Delia Hamlet. Meet the Candidates is the name of this show. So let's get right to it. Jordan, you want to start with the first question?
Sure. First, Delia, thanks for raising your hand to run. It's very impressive. Why are you running, and what personal attributes and prior experience make you right for council?
Well, thank you for asking that question. And first, I just want to say thank you for having me here tonight. It's an honor to be here with a former mayor and a former council member, obviously, who worked in a bipartisan manner. If you don't know, I was written in. You might have heard that. So I really didn't plan on running. I actually had heard the night before the primary, a few people called me and said, I think they're going to put your name in for common council. And I said, okay. I think, does anybody else want to give it a try? And there weren't any takers. And then once the results were certified, I had somebody sit down with me and they said, just sit down with a piece of white paper and a pencil and really think about why you want to run. And I did that exercise and I came up with the solution, or I guess as this is a result of me being here now, that I'm running for the same reasons that I've been sitting in common council meetings for the last several years: safety, communication, transparency, and most recently Broad Street West. And I was really inspired by all of the residents, the brave residents who spoke up at meetings. As we were talking before this, there's been meetings in the past that went till 1 a.m. We've had some really long meetings and some really passionate residents who really want to get their voices heard. So I'm really running for them. I have no other desire for this office other than to be their voice and advocate. And I think I have a very strong background. I'm a business owner. I recently opened up a 50,000 square foot fitness facility, which we run operations all day long. We just opened up in September. We have 1,300 members. Things are constantly either going well or not going well. You have to adjust. It's all about relationships. And my prior experience in the military is another example of my strong work ethic, organizational skills, and really just working with various different people to get things done.
Okay. So at the local level, what's the difference between a Republican and a Democrat?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay. We told you to keep it brief.
I guess when I say that, to give you a little bit of background, one of the reasons when I agreed to run, one of the other question I asked myself is, the only way I can do this is if I can do this with my team. And my team includes a Democrat, an independent, and a Republican. We've been sitting at council meetings for the last several years. We have a lot of good dialogue, a lot of good collaboration, and I don't think that partisan politics belongs in local government. In fact, I was speaking with a mayor down in Monmouth County today, and he said it's one of the biggest problems right now. And Red Bank's actually doing a charter program to look at bipartisan council, and I'm passionate about it because I don't think it belongs.
Okay.
So we're going to make it a little harder for you. Putting aside municipal government, what do you believe are the philosophical differences between the two parties?
I think we can go various different routes. You can talk about limited government, fiscal responsibility. There's some hot topic items right now like gun control and abortion. I'm never going to have to govern on those issues. I think there's different philosophical levels between the far left, the far right, moderates. I think it's actually a huge benefit to hearing someone else's opinion. In fact, I went to the Tom Malinowski event on 3 or 4 weeks ago because I want to hear. A lot of my constituents like Tom, and some of the other ones like Tom Kean, and I like to hear the differences, and I use different solutions and ideas.
Thank you.
Okay. So what do you think can be done to reinvigorate the downtown, and tie that together with how do you feel about closing the streets for outdoor dining?
Well, thanks for that question. And I think that Summit has done a great job invigorating the downtown. The SDI has done a great job. Recently, they just put something out on the website that explained all of the new processes for businesses, how to track your permits. So I think that businesses know how to do business best, and we have to let them do that. The faster we can make the permit process, the better. And I think ultimately you have to really have a collaborative relationship with businesses regarding parking, regarding security, and a lot of other things. And when you talk about the Maple Street closure, I think it's really important to get everybody's opinion. And I said at one of the recent council meetings, One of the things I love is surveys, and I like a proactive survey. So I'd like to see a survey sent out proactively to 22,000 residents. And I know a lot of residents got it, but there is a lot of value to getting all of the residents, all 22,000, their opinion on Maple Street. I certainly enjoy Maple Street on the weekends. I will tell you, it is difficult to get around town. I have 3 children, high school, middle, and elementary. It took me 51 minutes to get all 3 to school on the first day of school.
Ooh.
So I think that there's a little bit of a compromise.
Right. So there's a lot of emphasis, obviously, on the downtown Springfield Avenue area. But what would you do for the commercial areas in East Summit and West Summit?
It's interesting you asked that question. I'm glad you asked that question because a lot of times I think we focus too much on downtown. And what I'm hearing from business owners, whether it's in East or West Summit, is it's really important to communicate with them because anytime we open up a business on that side of town, it's important for them to want to go to a new coffee shop or a new pizza shop. And when we do construction, for example, I've spent a lot of time with some businesses on Morris Avenue. I went into a local restaurant the other day and they said they're losing 20% of the business because of the construction. So that's a lot. That is a lot of business. And I think it just takes a village and communicating and making sure that we give them timely and accurate information regarding construction and really just work with them because at the end of the day, they're just as important to our community as the main downtown.
Okay. Union County taxes are a huge burden on our residents. Many in the past have tried different approaches to deal with the county. What would you do differently?
Well, again, I've only been doing this for about 60 days, but I think really the big issue there is making sure we get enough from Union County, making sure that we hold them accountable. And I think one of the ways we do that is by going to those meetings and being an advocate for us. To give you an example, when I was door knocking and speaking with residents down at Bryant Pond a few weeks ago, I called up Rick Mateus, the county engineer, and I said, "Hey Rick, what's going on here? You know, these residents aren't happy." And of course, that's not my role, but I know him, and I just was curious. So I think those constantly maintaining your relationships, and I think that goes from all different levels of staff within Union County, just getting to know them, because the more people know you, the more they're going to advocate for you.
Okay.
Brian Pond's a hot button for me, I'll
Yes,
tell you
it
that.
is. I think both permits just got approved last week.
Great.
To clean out the pond.
Yes. They were waiting
Right.
on a land use and the historical preservation
That's great.
one, so I heard they just got approved. Don't hold me to it.
With 565 municipalities in New Jersey, the concept of sharing services has long been appealing. Where do you see opportunities for shared services?
Well, I think Summit has done a great job in shared services. Obviously, the dispatch center and the fire station using shared services has been great. I think we could look, especially if we're talking about having a revenue problem, there are multiple ways that we could try to look, at least do an analysis of whether or not the transfer station would make sense. I'm not sure, but that would be my initial take. I'm constantly thinking of ways to generate revenue for the city, and I think when I get into office, that would be one of the main things that I would like to look at.
So there's lots of national press on the subject of policing, the role of policemen. What are your thoughts as they pertain to Summit? And let me just tie in, what, if anything, do you think police could do better, and how would you propose to accomplish that?
I think that's a great question, Frank. And anybody who knows me knows that security is one of my top priorities. In fact, as we sit here at near Central Presbyterian Nursery School, I was on the board for security here. I was on the board for security at Lincoln Hubbard. And it's always something I've been passionate about. Maybe it's from my military background, but I always think of the worst case scenario because that's just how I'm trained. I'm always trained to think of what could happen next and what if. You know, it's not when my kids leave the door in the morning, I'm worried about them getting hit by a car that might be speeding. So it's changed as I've gotten older. I think as you had mentioned, the talk around policing, it varies from end to end. We're so lucky in Summit to have an amazing police force. I think that, I actually just got off the phone with the Monmouth County Sheriff this morning because they actually are members of my gym, the commissioner and the sheriff. And I said, hey, Sean, what are initiatives are you doing right now that that we could look at? Is there anything new? We're talking about car thefts. We're talking about multiple different things. So I think having those conversations and figuring out what other task force are doing and what other areas are doing well, and just seeing how we can plug different things in different areas. But I think we're very lucky. I think we have the most amazing police force here, and I know that they're committed to keeping us safe.
Okay.
So, car thefts and break-ins are a big issue in Summit. Given our proximity to Route 24, how would you deal with that?
Well, I'm dealing with it right now. I live right off of Fernwood Road, and about 2 years ago, there was actually an abduction on our street. And that's when we became really passionate around car thefts and safety. And we've had multiple cars stolen. And I think, at the end of the day, a lot of people are leaving key fobs in. The main priority is to get people to take their key fobs in. But there are a lot of people who may forget. I know that recently, my neighbor, she had actually been hit 3 times. Once her home was burglarized on Fernwood, then there was the abduction, and then somebody tried to steal her car while her husband was in the garage. The car was 4 feet outside. He was just building a soccer net. They've become more brazen. And I actually talked to Sean Golden about that this morning, about the fact that we really just do have to work with the county and work with all different departments to try to solve this problem, figure out who the cartels are, and just really advocate for some change.
Okay. Summit continues to become more diverse. What should we be doing to make it even more inclusive?
Frank, that is an interesting question, and I think that you can look at diversity from so many different ways. I think Summit's always been a really welcoming community. I think what we can do for diversity is work on democracy. I think that right now, not everybody's voices are being heard, and I think we need to start there. I think it's one of the main reasons why I'm running. I also think that one of the things that I've noticed is, for example, if you look on our city's website, you can get it in different languages, but when you go to the minutes of the city council meetings, it's in a PDF, so anybody can actually see what's going on. I think it's something that I want to fix. I want everybody to read the minutes, and I want them to be available. I think it's an easy fix, and I think it will bring more diversity. We actually had a speaker a few months ago who actually asked, does anybody on the council even speak Spanish? The answer is probably no. I mean, I'd love to learn. I'm getting better at it. I took it in high school, but all of my information is in Spanish and English, and there's multiple other languages that I think we can take advantage of the fact that we need to be better at that.
Okay.
So what do you believe is the most underserved constituency in Summit?
I really don't know the answer to that one. I would think in speaking with a lot of the residents, I know we have a wonderful senior program. In fact, I actually went on the bus to ShopRite with them and, explored how they get to the ShopRite and things of that nature. I haven't spent enough time trying to figure that out. One of the things that I would like to do is, if I was a council member, I would have an advisor for each different group. Maybe, we have a lot of different groups in Summit, because I think it's important to hear exactly who might be underrepresented and figure it out from there.
Interesting.
What are your thoughts on the Broad Street West redevelopment? We're smiling because everybody has thoughts on it. And how would you have handled it differently?
Well, it's interesting. As I walked here tonight, I walked right past the library and the YMCA, and I actually took a picture, and I thought, geez, what would happen if that building was built right there? Because you can directly see St. Teresa's through that spot. And I sat there for a minute, and I thought, what would it look like if it was there? Broad Street West is going to fundamentally change Summit forever. And that's the reason why residents are asking questions. That's the reason why Millie Cooper talks about the underground train station. Millie Cooper and her crew fought for the underground train station because it fundamentally changed Summit. And I think sometimes that people are seeing these residents' concerns as attacks. They're fighting for their town. I actually sat with Michael Rogers a few weeks ago, and I said, hey, Michael, tell me how this project benefits me as a taxpayer and a mother of 3. Because some of the council members are telling us it's about the finances and it's about the affordable housing. So I actually asked Greg Vartan that question in a council meeting last week. I said, can you get a little more granular on the finances? Because when a lot of us that are informed look at the finances, it's not going to be a financial impact. Now, if there's something we don't know, then we would have to be clued into that. Summit's always been great at meeting its affordable housing requirement. We've always been a very welcome community. We all want affordable housing, but do we need to put that monstrosity of a project in there to obtain that goal? You know, John, there was a gentleman last week who mentioned a Village Green 2. You know, maybe again, we go out and we survey the 22,000 residents. You know, we've got a petition with 1,800 people, which is a darn good representation. So I think that when when residents vote this year, it's going to be really important because I think we need to completely restart. The pilot's not right. I'm not sure redevelopment's right. Our experts certainly weren't right. And you know, council's learning. It's not an attack on them. You know, they're learning. They're volunteers. They've done a great job, and I think they got some bad advice. And now we just need to, you know, eat some humble pie and move on and start over and just make it work together as a community.
Okay.
So what do you think the biggest things in Summit that need to be fixed?
That is a great question, and one that I think about a lot because I like to fix problems. So a lot of times people have complaints and they don't know how to fix them. One of the things that I've noticed is some of the residents don't know how to get information. They're too busy to come to a council meeting. I have been advocating for hybrid meetings for years. I think it's important that residents can get that information. There was some questions around the park line a few weeks ago on Facebook. Well, what's going on? When's it going to be open? So one of the things I suggested was putting a QR code down at the bridge. Put a QR code down with all the information at the council meeting so people can be informed, because it is infrequent that people can attend those meetings. I think we have to hunker down on pedestrian safety. I think people are driving too fast. I think we need to ticket more. I think the mayor has actually advocated and encouraged for that most recently. There was actually a gentleman who was hit a few weeks ago. So I think we need to get serious on pedestrian safety. It's one of the things that I'm most passionate about.
How would you manage a city budget? Can you identify new revenue sources or ways of reducing expenses?
But that is an interesting question as well, because as I've been campaigning, I go to several different offices. So I sat with Michael Rogers twice. I'm meeting with Chief Zagorski. I've met with the Board of Education. I'm constantly just trying to learn how to do that. And when I met with Michael, it's a complex process. You know, one of the things that I think would be important is to break down that budget snapshot and make it a little more user-friendly for the residents, because I don't know if they understand sometimes what everything costs. So I think that would be one of the things to make a little bit more clear to residents. One of the ideas I had for revenue generation, I was with Mark from Parks and Rec, and I went to the golf course and I noticed they didn't have like a little practice facility. And I said, you know, what if we raised the price just a little bit and we had an awesome practice facility, or we thought of new ways to generate some revenue and make it a better experience for the people who use the golf course.
There's actually a follow-on, which I didn't ask, so let me ask that. It's tied to the first part. Where do you think Summit spends too much, and how would you reallocate that spending? Are there areas where you think we spend too much?
I think that we have to probably take a look at the budget from soup to nuts. I mean, last year we got a tax cut, now we have a revenue problem. So I'm having a hard time figuring out where we need to cut. Again, I would have to do a deep budget analysis. I actually did have somebody look at our budget and actually told Michael Rogers, I said, hey Michael, I had somebody look at your budget and said it was pretty darn good. So I think that I'm always looking for ways to increase revenue. We haven't really increased parking recently. I would advocate potentially for possibly increasing it for out-of-town commuters, because this is our community and it's an attractive place for people to park and hop on the train. So I think that's one way we could generate revenue. Also with the transfer station, residents that aren't from here, maybe they have to pay a little bit more.
Okay.
What initiative would you bring to Summit?
To council.
To council.
What initiative? Can you tell me, just in general, any ideas that I have?
It's kind of, I guess where we're headed with this is, what's like the big thing that you would want council?
The big thing that I want is I want the residents of Summit to come to the microphone and feel comfortable. I want to create an environment that people are having fun again. They're not yelling, and they're not, we have to start building back some relationships, and we need to work on that. Because right now it feels like we're sort of in a bad divorce. But I think that it's a special community. We have so many residents that are intelligent, and we need to use them as a resource. I think Broad Street West is a clear example of that, and I think that that would be something that I would absolutely advocate for. And I would also advocate for putting things up on the screen during the meeting, because sometimes when we're introducing ordinances and things of that nature, I have a hard time processing things quickly. So I've actually recommended just putting the bullet points up on the screen so that people can actually process the information.
Okay. So we're up to the last question.
One quick.
So with this question, we'll have you address the camera,
Sure.
the folks, and take as much time as you need. If elected, when your term ends, how would you like to be remembered?
And thank you for all of your time today. This has been a great experience, and I appreciate it. If elected, I want to make sure that the Summit residents know that I'm going to work very hard to encourage communication, better communication, transparent process, and a better outcome for Broad Street West. This is probably one of the most important elections that you will ever vote in, because the outcome of this election will absolutely determine what happens on Broad Street West. Now, I'll never have any more voting power, but I always ask the tough questions, and I always ask all of the residents. In fact, many of you may be getting my surveys right now. I encourage you to answer my surveys because I want to know what's important to you. As I survey around Ward 1, about 36% of the surveys that I sent out have Broad Street West as their top priority. The second is safety. So I think we're all on the same page. If you're a new resident, it's really hard to get caught up on Broad Street West. I would encourage you to just reach out if you have questions. It's going to impact you. It's going to impact your kids. It's going to impact our traffic, and it's going to fundamentally change Summit forever. So it's important to take a pause, but it's also going to be important to think about how that property could be used for all of us. Could it be a village green too? Could it be a beautiful park and accomplish affordable housing? I think that the visions are endless, and I think we want to include you. I look forward to serving. I'm honored that I'm here, even getting the opportunity. And you can always reach me, deliaforsummit.com. I'm around town knocking on doors, and I'm looking forward to meeting all of you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Delia.
Well, thank you very much.
Again, thanks for
Thank
raising
you.
your hand.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.